This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The sound of praise for your Sunday morning.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Introducing Reverend A.R. Bernard of the Christian Cultural Center.
Was the son of a preacher man.
And Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of Religion on the Line.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Now, here's the Rev and the Rabbi, where faith matters.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we are so blessed to have with us His Eminence Timothy Cardinal Dolan, with whom we are close professionally, with whom we are close personally. It is really an honor to have Your Eminence on the phone with us.
It's an honor to be with you, Rabbi and Reverend, and it must be Passover and Easter because you're saying nice things about me, Joe. Thank you.
Well, not yet, not yet. Let me just say this, just to protect my interest as well as yours. This is pre-recorded, so there's no use of technology on this sacred day.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right.
We're all in a house of worship this morning.
Yeah. Your Eminence, you know, we have, as you have, people who are with us every Sabbath, every holiday. There are those who come sporadically, of course, of those who don't come. How do we craft a message that resonates for both groups that are present?
Well, I'll tell you this. I get asked that all the time, especially at Christmas and Easter. They'll say, look, your churches are jammed in Lent and Holy Week and Easter. Your churches are jammed in Advent and Christmas, and then you don't see them. I say, I wish we did, but I'm grateful for the chance to pray with them and to be with them at limited times of the year. And two things. Number one, I hope they enjoy it, and they tell me they do. So every time I offer Mass during those sacred holy days, I say, I hope you enjoyed being with us as much as we enjoyed having you. If you did enjoy it, hey, we do this every Sunday, so come on back, and I'll be darned some of them do. And secondly, Reverend Bernard and Rabbi Potasnik, I think we got there's a natural analog in this too. How many people do we say, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holy days, Easter, we get together with the family. It's such a great meal. We laugh, we tear up over sad things, we hug, we enjoy one another, and we say, why do we only do this at the holidays, the holy days? Why don't we start doing this every Sabbath? And they say the same thing. And this is our family time together, the holy days, the Passover, Christmas, Easter. We love having the family together. We wish we could do it more often, and I hope some of them do come back, and I think they do. And secondly, my two brothers, aren't we supposed to try, as daring as this sounds, to adopt a posture of God, of the divine, and say, look, they're all my children anyway. And sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they sin. Sometimes they lead virtuous lives. I invite them. I never forget them. I've made a covenant with them that I'm not going to break. I just savor them wherever. So I think we should be more like the Lord.
Yeah, we're thankful they're there. Let me ask you one other point here. Both Passover and Easter talk about beginning again. In Jewish tradition, if you look at the Talmud, it begins on page 2 rather than page 1. And I think there's a message there that we also have to learn how to live on page 2. That there comes a time when we're born, we begin life, but we have to, in a sense, be reborn, begin life again.
Yeah. Well, AR will back me up here, Joe. That's what Jesus told us. You got to be reborn by water and the Holy Spirit. And you are right, Rabbi. Rebirth is at the heart of religion. We're constantly being renewed. We are God's work of art, the Bible tells us. He's never finished with us. He's always refining. He's always touching up. He's always repairing the cracks. He's always calling us to a greater nobility. He's never done with us. We should never be done with ourselves. And I'm glad we got a God of second chances. I'm glad we got a God of the Mets and not just the Yankees. You know what? There's always another chance. There's always another year.
I'm from Boston. I'm well aware. Yeah.
Cardinal, let me ask you a question. There's a wonderful passage in the Gospel of Luke where the women come to Jesus' tomb on resurrection morning, expecting to find his lifeless body. And an angel appears and asks this very powerful question: why do you look for the living among the dead? And it remains a powerful question today because people are looking for meaning, they're looking for purpose, but they're looking in places that can't offer it. Speak to that, please, Cardinal.
One of the most astounding passages in Scripture, Reverend Bernard, I agree with you. Why you can almost see the angel exasperated. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He's alive. He's still with you. He ain't with you. And you were right. Is not what Rabbi Potasnik, what was in the drama of the Passover, the Exodus? The people of Israel, they kind of wanted to go back to where they were dead. Let's go back to Egypt. At least we had some decent food. At least we had the homes over our heads. At least we had a place to go at night. Let's go back. They're kind of wanting to go back to the dead, where they were not free, where they did not have the liberty of God's people, where they did not have their dignity protected. We're always wanting to go to what hurts us, to what kills us. Why do we keep doing the stuff that drags us down? Why do we keep doing the stuff that deadens us? Why do we keep doing the stuff that kind of extinguishes everything that's decent and victorious and noble in our sentiments? We're trying to do that. That's that sinful impulse and urge that we got within us. And you're right, AR. That's what the angel said on Easter morning. Look, you're here in a cemetery, and he's out and about alive. He's still with you until the end of days. Go find him, because Lord knows he's looking for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what faith tradition. People are people, and people continue to seek meaning and in success, but success fades. We search for identity and relationship, but people can disappoint us. We try to numb pain with distractions, but the emptiness still comes back. It returns.
Yeah. Can we get back? You guys brought up something a couple of minutes ago about Reverend Bernard. It was your citing that stunning quotation, why are you looking for the living among the dead? So all three of us kind of become experts on reading religious data, of looking to the studies that come out. And there's a lot of good ones. Sometimes they cause us heartburn, but sometimes they give us a lot of hope. And one of the things I've noticed, and this was particularly surprising to me because it was a sociological religious study on young men today in America, and it was saying that there's this kind of spike among young men in the United States who are now seeking faith and religion. Now, it's surprising because most of the time we believe in the old canard that religion and faith is kind of the men sort of stand outside the churches and smoke, and the women go inside. And secondly, we don't think that young men would be interested in religion. And I'll be darned, these sociological statistics now show us that they're coming back. Now, I'm wondering, first of all, if you two sense that. Number two, I'm wondering if that ties in what you said earlier, Reverend Bernard. When you're kind of doped into following leads to happiness in life that really lead to deadening results, you're going to begin to search somewhere else. And is that the reason, again, it's not a revolutionary thing, but at least it's a tendency, is that the reason they're coming back?
You know, there's a prophetic, it's in the book of Isaiah, word that says, why do you spend your money on those things that can't satisfy. And there seems to be something inside of us that we're always looking for something more, for something else. And we look in all of these places that are simply a distraction, only to find ourselves empty. And I think it's that restlessness. I think it's Augustine of Hippo who said that we continue in our restlessness. I'm paraphrasing, until we find our rest in God. And isn't that what we're doing in our faith traditions? Pointing people to the transcendent, pointing them to something that's greater than all of us, to find that place of rest and security and safety and meaning and purpose. Isn't that what we're doing, Rabbi?
Well, I'm going to weigh in on this, but I've been told we got to take a break. So with your permission, we'll be back in just a few moments.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in a moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
So good, so good, so good.
Great gifts for mom? We've got them. And they're up to 60% off at Nordstrom Rack stores now.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Gotta show mom some love.
That is so good.
Snag amazing deals on Mother's Day gifts from Barefoot Dreams, Kate Spade New York, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
You know, the question we left with before the break was, do we find young men coming back? I find in many circles there are young people, both men and women, who are saying, we feel a void. We were told you got to be successful in this world. And success was defined as materialistic success. And we were very successful financially, but we realized there was something else missing. And as we explored, we recognized that in a synagogue, in a church, in a house of worship, there is a sense of validation. I feel like I'm necessary in this world. The second thing I find is that with people, many of them were religious, so to speak, in acts of good deeds, that they were out there volunteering in food pantries, volunteers in hospitals or in other settings. And I would say to them, you're already doing something that is asked by our faith. So, you know, we'd appreciate your being in the house of worship, but it's when you leave the house of worship, look what you're doing. That counts as well, rather than saying, oh, I'm not religious because I don't go to services on the Sabbath.
Yeah. AR, are you finding it? I don't know if you ever experienced.
I will tell you. I again, don't judge by my experience. It could be something to inspire because for the first 2/3 of the last 4 decades that we have been in ministry, we have had more men in church than women in terms of membership. And I, I asked, why? And we found that men were coming because they were looking for identity, strength, order, meaning, and purpose. And we were giving that out. We were, tying that to their faith. And we continue, it's kind of flipped where it's just a fewer men now than women. But in the majority of Christian churches, the male population is 15 to 20%. So when you have more than that, there has to be something special that's drawing. But we found those things: identity, strength, order, meaning, and purpose, and camaraderie amongst men. So we're experiencing it.
But Your Eminence, didn't we also find that we as clergy looked within, and we weren't just pointing a finger at others not coming, we're saying, wait a minute, maybe we have some responsibility here as well. Maybe there's something we're not doing. I remember you telling a group of us one day, nobody wants to come and hear a grumpy old guy. Just, just excoriate them for not being there. There's got to be something
I hope
more.
That's not true. They're listening to 3 of them now. I don't know.
But I think.
No, but Joe, Rabbi Potasnik, go back to what you said about an emptiness that we see a lot of our young adults. Is that not in almost like COVID-like nature here in New York?
Right.
I meet so many young men, and yes, some young women, but we're kind of saying here how happily surprised we are that young men are coming back. I meet so many young men who have come from outside of New York, and they said, everybody at home is celebrating. I landed a job in New York. Isn't he great? He's on Easy Street. He's got it set. He's got his career. He's in big time. He's in the town that never sleeps. And these folks said these young men say, we were so excited to come here, and now we're frustrated. We work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. We don't have time for friendship. We don't have time for reading. We don't have time for anything but to work. On our day off, we sleep in because we're so exhausted. We don't even try to worship or go to synagogue or church. And darn it, something's missing. Yeah. This was not what it was cracked up to be. And I'm thinking, way to go.
The song, is that all there is?
You got it.
Right. Rev?
But isn't that what we teach from the pulpit? Because they're trying to learn from us how to live. The whole idea of the Sabbath as a principle, we teach in our congregation. There has to be a work-rest rhythm, and you rest so you can work, and not the other way around. So we teach our men to be responsible, to be foundational. We subscribe to the traditional model of family, the role of the man as a leader, complemented by his wife. And we try to give them principles and patterns that they can follow to be a successful man, a successful leader, a successful husband, a successful father. And that formula has worked, gentlemen, for the last, 4 decades.
What's the purpose of the Sabbath for all of us? Wasn't the Sabbath a day, not just God rested, but God rested and looked within. In Hebrew, vayinofash, he looked at the inner being, the inner soul. All of us have to look and say, what more is there for me? It's not just to sleep. And I think in that sense, we offer more than in that secular world.
Well, let me ask you two friends, flowing from that, Reverend Bernard and Rabbi Potasnik, flowing from that. Some of these sociologists also tell us, and these sociologists might be skeptics, they might be atheists, they're not believers, they're simply interpreting data. One of the things they say is that marriage and family is good. good. It is good for the person. It is good for the couple. It's good for the family. It's good for the nation. It's good for our community. And it is good for faith and religion. We find traditionally that there's a gap between when a young man or woman will leave the nest and when he or she begins a nest of their own with a husband, with a wife, and then with children. That's where they reconnect with religion. One of the challenges we got is that gap is getting wider and wider because people aren't getting married till later and later and later. And some of the sociologists are saying that's not really good. It's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for a woman to be alone. They drift. They start seeking pagan gods. They get into deadening habits. They start looking for the living among the dead. And I just would love to know, A.R., I think if I read your excellent literature correct, you have a very kind of a real well-oiled, vigorous campaign to have young men and women get married and start families. And Rabbi, I don't know if that's a value among our Jewish friends as well. I think we Catholics.
One of the statements in the Bible, as you know, is it's not good to be alone. By the way, it doesn't say it's so bad. It just says it's not good. It doesn't say it's not good to be alone. And marriage is right up there as one of the great priorities. And you know that years ago, a house of worship was a house of gathering, was a place to meet others. And if you were looking for that soulmate, stress on soul, you went to the house of worship. That's where you would find someone with whom you could connect.
Yeah,
it's true.
I delight. One of the sounds I revel in at Sunday Mass, it irritates some people. I love it when babies are crying. Yeah. I'm saying, hey, this is an angelic chorus here, folks. Yeah. This means we got a future. This means we got mom and dad for whom the Sabbath is so important that they got the kids here and they're praying and worshiping together. I think that's one of the greatest things around.
See, for us in our congregation, baby dedications take place the third Sunday of every month, and it's a community event. All of the families come forward. They bring their babies. They're all dressed up. There's going to be a photo op. We give them a Bible with the baby's name on it and all of that. We have a congregational prayer together, and we really make it a big deal. So whenever we only have a few families and a few babies, I rebuke my congregation. I say, you guys need to step it up here. We've got to have a tax base for the future.
Now, what do you mean step it up? You want them? What does that mean there, Rev? You know, your remnants,
we've got to have a tax base. We won't have a tax base if we keep this up.
Yeah. Your remnants, I know you have to run soon.
Well, I love you guys, and you've just made my Holy Week and Easter a heck of a lot better being with you. And I wish you and your people all my love and best wishes.
Thank you so much. And I have some extra matzah left over for you, your remnants. I'd love you to take some of that.
If I can put peanut butter and jelly on it, I'll take it. All right.
You got it.
See you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Blessings.
Blessed day,
your eminence. Yeah. And stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
We're shipping Mother's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes. My gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Campfire season's back, and that means s'mores. But when you're at home treating yourself, take them over ice with Dunkin' S'mores Cold Brew Concentrate. And suddenly you're always treating yourself. The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. Click or tap the banner to shop now.
matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Is he not a joy to have in our family? The fact that, we enjoy the closeness we do with Cardinal Dolan. He's such a special figure in New York, but also a great figure in the Jewish community. I was with him at a synagogue at Temple Emmanuel, the 180th anniversary, a few weeks ago. It was a Friday night. We were there together. They love him. And wherever he goes, they appreciate his outreach to people of different faiths.
Well, he's a great person. I mean, you could have a role and a position, but it's who you are as a person that leaves that indelible mark on people. And when he walks into a room, you and I know, he lights up the room. He says hello to everyone. I don't care if you're the cleaning lady, the janitor, or the president. It doesn't matter. He's able to quickly work a room in a way that everyone feels affirmed. Everyone feels warm and respected by him. And I think that's a great part of it, Rabbi.
I remember some time ago reading some English passages in the prayer book, Jewish prayer book. And one of the verses stated, one has to be holy and human. And I thought to myself, well, doesn't holy mean being human? Why are there two separate words there? And then I recognized that sometimes people who are holy seem to remove themselves from mingling with others. They try to separate. There's a gap. And I think Cardinal Dolan says you can be holy and human all in one person, all at one time.
I am quite pleasantly surprised that you were preaching about Jesus Christ and his mission to bring grace.
That was in the Jewish way.
I'm shocked. I'm taken aback. I tell you. But that's
let me remind you.
That's what he was accused of. He was accused of hanging out with tax collectors and sinners and just the terrible individuals of his day. And yet his message was embracing everyone, sharing love and grace to everyone.
Well,
you want to comment on that?
Of course. I will emphasize that Jesus was Jewish. So,
of course, yeah.
Right. So so that behavior is rooted in that Jewish persona. But I think all of us have to recognize that when you are religious, and religious from the Latin comes to bind together, then you have to get closer to the other, not further away. And I think for too long, too many were separated. It's like the pulpit and the pew. Yeah, there's a bit of a difference, but the whole idea is to bring them closer to each other. You do it well. I've seen you do it. And we all try, I think, in our own way to say, let's bridge that divide.
Yeah, I think that we need to stop judging people immediately by what position they take politically or in terms of their religious identification, and treat them as human beings. I think that's the common denominator, that we are made in the image of God. The image of God is stamped on every human person, and they are, no matter who they are, where they come from, educational level, economic level, etc., they are worthy of dignity and respect, and we should do that. Yes, there are individuals who lean towards deviancy. This is true, but we can't forget that they're human. One thing that struck me early in the scripture, in the book of Genesis, the fact that Cain was a murderer, right?
Yeah.
And he was concerned about being murdered, the very thing that he was guilty of. He was concerned about someone doing to him. And he presents this to God, and then God puts protection on him, that whoever kills Cain will have to answer. How do we explain God protecting the criminal, the violator of law? I'm curious, in your tradition, how do you respond to that?
We also realize that we are a religion predicated on laws, and laws mean accountability. And it is not not for the individual to decide. You decide because you have this moral compass, this moral foundation, and there's a higher authority. So it's not just you can take the law into your own hands, as we often hear, but you have to do what's in concert with your religious faith system. And I think that's what God was saying, that you are accountable to me, and therefore you just can't go out there and kill, randomly. And also,
or be killed.
Or be killed.
Because
Right,
he
right.
was concerned. He was concerned about someone killing him,
right,
taking his life.
right.
He is
And
now being banned from the presence of God, and he didn't have that protection any longer. And then God extends the protection. How do we understand that? Is it an act of grace? It is warning us that
yeah,
ultimately we all answer to God, that He's
I think
responsible,
it's
even
both. I think
to
it's
the
both.
criminal.
I think it could be both. God, I'm showing you compassion. On the other hand, I'm also warning you that this is what happens when you take a life. You endanger your own life. So I think that's very important. But I'm really am taken with the fact that we can sit in a room, disagree with each other, and respect each other. Our friend and colleague, Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, said something recently that I think is very important, worth repetition. He said, we all have to learn ABC sitting at a table. A, acknowledge that there's a person there who may have a different opinion. B, breathe. C, choose how you're going to respond. Instead of that immediate reaction, that anger that surfaces, and you lose that regard for the other as an equal member of the human family. Just take a moment to recognize that person counts too. We talked about the polls show, the sociologists ask, and I often think to myself, what's being asked and who's asking the question? And if you say to a person, are you religious? And the person says, well, I don't go to services often. Is that the end, or is there a follow-up? Well, how do you express your faith? If so, tell me what particulars you follow. I mean, there are people, again, I think you qualify, to be described as somewhat religious if you do good deeds, if you're out there feeding the poor. You should. Would love you to go to services on Sabbath, but the fact that you don't go doesn't invalidate you as being somewhat religious.
But shouldn't we ask that question? Shouldn't we ask, well, what informs your moral compass?
Right.
We all have a conscience. We all have this sense of right and wrong, this universal value system that transcends any cultural or legal or ethnic context. What informs your moral compass? I think that's a very important question.
Yeah, I agree. And I was talking to a police detective the other day who gets involved in drug violence and gangs and, one of those easy jobs. And I said to him, you got young people, 13, 14 years old, joining gangs, holding guns. He said, well, one of the problems is for them, the gang becomes the family because they have no other family.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, so we were informed, first of all, by my case, parents, parents who went to the synagogue on a regular basis, as often as they could, made sure I would come along. Matter of fact, I didn't even have a choice. There was no free choice. There was no free will. You had to go. And as I look back, some of the best moments of my life was as a young boy looking up and seeing my dad, my mom. They were praying. They were exemplars of what being religious was all about for me. And some people don't have that, unfortunately.
Basic to every individual. My son Jamal, he's now Pastor Jamal, and stepping into
I remember
his
when he
dad's
wasn't a
shoes.
pastor. Yeah.
He was going, and he's a big guy. I mean, at that time, and it's all muscle. He was close to 300 pounds, but all muscle. He played football. And he would go to high schools to talk to kids about bullying. So if you're 6'4" and you're 300 pounds, you can command the
It's
audience to
convincing.
talk about bullying,
You're
right?
very persuasive. Yeah.
But he told him, he said, look, we all, because, one of the problems around schools is gangs.
Yeah.
He said, we all seek identity, acceptance, approval, and a sense of belonging. And if children are not getting it at home, they're going to look for it someplace else. And gang provides these things in a very perverted way.
Yeah. And that's why, again, the house of worship, you had role models there. Hopefully there were members of your family. But if they weren't, there were others there you would meet. If you meet other kids there, they were in the house of worship. What better place to meet than those, who had that kind of, that moral value system. So, I just, when I see these studies of people not going, yeah, I think to some extent it's true, but to some extent it's also not true. There are many people yearning, they're searching, and they do end up going,
And that's where community and relationships come into play. There's a wonderful passage in your Hebrew scriptures in the Psalm that says that God is a father to the fatherless.
Yeah.
And he is a covering for the orphan. And it talks about God taking the place of what should be normal in the family. There should be a father, there should be a mother, there should be these individuals who are foundational to keep the family together. And I think that what happens, and we've seen this in our faith community, when we have children without a father, the men in the congregation, along with uncles and others, they end up having these father figures begin to speak into their lives and provide for what's missing with the absence of a father or even the absence of a mother. And that's where community is so important. I think that's what the text really refers to, that God becomes the fathers of the fatherless by providing father figures and mother figures and individuals in our lives who give us that sense of identity, acceptance, approval, and sense of belonging.
And how sad it is when you don't have those kinds of representatives who are giving the example of what it's about to be committed to God, to be committed to community. But
And
you
that's the
mentioned
thing,
your
it's a
son.
need. So
Okay.
stay tuned for more of the Reverend the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi. Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, I want to take a moment to recognize someone who I thought made a very important statement this past week. I'm talking about Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. There was an attack, a hate attack, on the governor's residence during Passover, and it coincided with the first night of Passover, first Seder of Passover. And the governor then spoke to America. And he said, to those who seek to intimidate my family, my community, I just want to say one thing to you. Tonight, there will be a second Seder. And I thought to myself, what a statement of faith. What a statement of courage. Courage predicated on faith. Because he believes in his tradition, in his people, in his community, you can say, I know they stand with me. We're all together, and we will continue with our. No one is going to stop us from being who we are.
So unpack that, another Seder, because for him to say that, it means that the Seder represents something to him, and it should represent something to us to say we need to do it again. We've done one Seder, we need to do it again. What does the Seder mean in relationship to Josh Shapiro, to the fact that, there was this attack on his home and how he handled it? Unpack it, Rabbi.
I think of one of the Jewish college students that I met some time ago. And this was at Columbia University. And he said to me, I am not going to remove my yarmulke because there are some out there who hate me, who try to deprecate me. I am not going to put away my Jewish star or hide that mezuzah on the doorpost of my home because there are some who want to destroy me. I am going to be whom I want to be and whom I'm meant to be, whom I believe I should be. And it's a moment of courage. You know, Profiles in Courage was that famous book. To me, it was a profile in courage. This is what commitment is all about, that you don't let someone else take it from you.
And I know. Look, it's been more than 60 years after the death of John F. Kennedy. An assassination that we're still trying to wrestle through what actually happened. But the impact of something like that continues to be felt by the American public to this day. How do we get to the place in the society where we, whoever that may be, feels that the answer is taking out the life of its leadership or taking anyone's life out? How do we get to that place where that's the remedy?
We found a cures for many sicknesses, never the cure for all the hatred, racism, anti-Semitism. We say at the Passover Seder table, in every generation there are those who seek to destroy us. It's unfortunate. But I think back when President Trump, after the assassination attempt, held up his thumb like a victorious moment. I'm here. I'm still here, and I'm not going to allow someone to take away everything that we fought for over the years. I think that's what it's all about. Look, you get up on a pulpit. I get up on a pulpit. Public people, it can be dangerous out there. We have the violence that permeates so many hearts and so many places, and we're in the public. We're not going to stop what we're doing. We're not going to let others decide who we're going to be.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. I remember when a liberal shooter who liked what's her name, Rachel Maddow. He opens fire at a Republican baseball practice. You remember that in Virginia?
Yeah.
He wounds the GOP leaders, the Steve Scalise,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of talking about the fact that this should not be happening, all the finger pointing started, and everybody was saying it's this reason, it's that person, it's that group, and we go back and forth, and that's what has to end in our nation. We have to look at not whose side is guilty of what, but what are we doing as a society? How are we thinking? Where are we in our response to the problems and issues in our society? The answer cannot be violence.
Yeah. Well, you've negotiated 50%. I accept. Now, how do we convince the other 50%?
The other side.
Yeah.
The other side.
Look, you and I have
and
said
there's always going to be another side.
Yeah.
You know that.
You and
always going to be another side.
Yeah. You and I have said this week after week. We keep talking about civility. We talk about respect. We talk about integrity, character, all of those things that our parents spoke to us about. And then you pick up the newspapers and you look at the news and you say, wait a minute. What happened to all those ingredients of decency? Where are they today? Why don't they matter as much as they used to matter when we were growing up? And I think we were in a bad place because when someone said when the significant becomes the insignificant becomes the significant. So I think we need to bring back, if that's old school, we need to be old school.
Yeah, that's a good statement. That's a very, very good statement. That's why we talk about these things here.
Yeah,
right
so
here on the Reverend Rabbi Show.
Yeah.
This is a place for civil discourse, and we can disagree with each other and yet continue to have a relationship.
Yeah. By the way, the Cardinal said something which both of us were talked about. You have people of Egypt, some of the Jews wanted to go back. We had it. They lied in the sense that we had it easier. You didn't have it easier. They just were afraid of what was ahead of them. But some wanted to go back. And Passover said, no, you got to keep moving forward. You got to go towards that promised land. Easter, you have the naysayers. They say, I'd rather be with the dead than the living. We need, you have to know that choice is a healthy thing when there's a healthy objective.
Yeah. I have to raise this question because I remember reading one article on the Josh Shapiro situation, and the perpetrator's mother, I think, mentioned
Yeah.
to the Associated Press that he was mentally ill, and it keeps coming up again and again. And there are those who say, yeah, that's what they usually turn to justify their actions. But are we as a society suffering from a stress that manifests itself in violence? Are we there?
Remember that scene in the Bible where Moses sees an Egyptian attacking a Jew, and he looked this way and that way, Moses, and he saw no one was there. And don't we find that there's no one there to respond? A mother who cried out and said, my son needs help, and no attention was paid. And we're paying a price for that today in many places. Rev, we come to the end of the program.
What? We're just getting started here.
Well,
Rabbi.
I just got I got a reprieve for Mr. Ranabali. We got a little extension of time, another minute or so.
Okay.
So talk about, for me, Passover comes to a conclusion today. And by the way, once that reminder again, this program was pre-recorded. Easter for you. One of the things I've learned about Passover is freedom is about freedom to be your best, freedom to be who you really want to be. And I hope it's to be a proud Jew when you're a Jew, obviously.
Yeah, and to be a proud Christian when you're a Christian, or whatever religious belief you subscribe to, it should turn you into the best model of what it means to be human and what it means to live in this world.
Yeah.
That's what should come out of the religious influence on your life.
Well put, and let me wish you a blessed Easter, and just thank you. Thank you for these special moments that we share with one another. These are sacred moments for me as well.
Yeah, amen to that. And of course, as you close out Passover, all the best to you. And we will do this again next year. Of course, we'll be back next week. So tune in next time for another meaningful conversation with the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network. Till next time, God bless.